Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And this is whopping breaking news. It just took place within the last 24 hours, where actor Jonathan Majors has been found guilty and convicted of third-degree reckless assault and harassment against his ex-girlfriend. And this is very troubling. If you look at the video coverage from TMZ, he had a argument with the young lady. The part that probably helped put the nail in the coffin for him is when he was outside of the SUV, and then he tried to force her. He picked her up and tried to force her back into the SUV, where she bumped her head at the top of the car, and he shoved her in there. That's not a good look for him. And then she gets out, and then she commences to chase him. He initially, the way it all started was that she recognized that he had some text messages from some other women, and she confronted him about it and took his phone, and that initiated the argument and the conflict and the incident. But she took off running after him. He was running away from her, so he did show some vestige of trying to dissipate the altercation, and she took off after him, and they commenced to argue. And of course, this all took place in New York City, where there are a million cameras in New York City, just like Chicago, any of your major cities, Miami, Houston, LA. And so they were able to catch footage of it the entire time. And as a result, she said that she had a laceration on the back of her ear and a swollen finger. And he ended up, they go back to his apartment, he ended up calling the police on her, and they arrested him. And subsequently, supposedly she went out later on that night after the incident, and then came back and was laying in a closet on the floor. I guess he let her back into his place, and she seemed to be in distress. So it turned out to be not a good look for him. And I think the whole point of my video is going back as a middle-aged man to talk about to these young folks. Jonathan Majors is 34 years old. He was a major actor in the Marvel Comics movies, making a ton of money. And outside of Michael B. Jordan, I think Jonathan Majors, Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors were going to be the next Will Smith and Jamie Foxx as far as young black actors. And this is unfortunate that he picked a person that has decided to ruin his career. I think relationships and young couples, even in my old relationships when I was in my 20s and 30s, as a married man, you're going to have conflict, but how to deal with it is the right answer. I don't know what his family dynamics were. Was he in a fatherless home? Did he not watch the correct appropriation on how to deal with women and when it comes to conflict? But he ended up getting into a chasm that has cost him his entire career. So he was convicted on 2 charges, third-degree reckless assault and harassment. And she didn't get anything. Now, he's the major figure, and she's just a regular civilian as far as I know. At least she's not as popular as him. So he took a chance with a young lady, was not married to her, and his career has now faltered and ended. Marvel Studios, Disney, has dropped him as an actor for their movies, and I think potentially he's going to lose out on about $300 to $500 million if he would have continued to be a lead actor in the Marvel movies. I'm sure his pay rate was $10 million, $20 million a year, and then what he would have gotten in residuals. And I'm also sure that the young lady that he was dating was not making anywhere near that kind of income, not even a fraction of it. So, for all the people that are looking at this, especially young African American men, we have to be very cautious and very careful and calculating on who we're going to date and marry. It's one of the biggest decisions that you will ever make. And it seems that with this Me Too movement and after Black Lives Matter, that there is a shadow or cloud that's hovering over many of these African American men in Hollywood. It seems like, I don't know if there's a conspiracy, but ever since the Michael Jackson and Bill Cosby scenario, there's been a whole chasm of black actors that have been accused of sexual assault or sexual inappropriateness. And New York is not a state to play with. I mean, you have several layers that are taking place in this particular scenario. One, the average citizen doesn't pay attention to his or her state laws, legislators, politicians, aldermen, city councilmen, and the laws that are being put on the books that affect you each and every day. Most people, if they get charged with something, it's more so a state crime than a federal crime. So you should know your state laws and what's going on in every state that you live in, more so than your federal laws, unless you're doing something completely out of the ordinary and egregious. But in the state of California, you know that they had this Survivors Act that just expired, and there's been a plethora of allegations against P. Diddy, Jamie Foxx, Axl Rose, Jimmy Iovine, just a plethora of people. There's been a ton of civil suits that have been filed. If you look at the history of New York, it has been a criminally beehive of nonsense for years. Politicians have been corrupt. Businessmen have been corrupt. It's a pay-to-play city. Even though the lights shine bright, there's a dark gloom behind them that people are not paying attention to. They have very draconian and constrictive gun laws. They had the hip-hop police. And there's been an arrow that's been targeted straight at black and African American entertainers and rappers and entertainers. So it's not surprising that this case with Jonathan Majors took place in New York City. I think the dominoes were stacked up against him. Race always plays an issue. She was a white or Iranian, Jabari is her last name. She was a non-black, looked like a white lady. He's African American, 34 years old. Race always plays a factor in it. I don't believe that she necessarily took him down because he was black or someone sent her to him. I don't think he was that heavy on the radar. But once you get caught up in that web of the courts, then race does play an issue. Whether you have a white judge, a white prosecutor, what did the jurors look like in his case? I didn't think that, for the little bit that I know about it, that it deserved for him to be convicted. They had a disagreement. He touched each other a little bit. Nobody got beat, sent to the hospital. And he has ended up losing his entire career. And this character assassination, which is what the world is about today, with the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, will stay with him forever. This is a circumstance that will be a nightmare in his dreams every time that he closes his eyes and lays his head on his bed, that he will regret that he ever had a relationship with this young lady. But it doesn't make a difference if she was white or black. There's several scenarios where black athletes and entertainers have been brought down by black women. I'm not saying that this is a black and white issue. I think it's a black and white issue when it comes to the courts, and for the prosecutor to make a name for himself or herself by getting this major actor convicted is just a niche in that person's belt. They don't Most people don't care about other folks. It's me, not we. And if he looks back at this and looks at the mirror, he's regretting this each and every day. There was probably some reckless behavior going on with him in his relationship with this young lady. How was she able to even look at his phone to see his text, which initiated this conflict? So his arrogance and his hubris probably initiated and started this conflict, but that doesn't mean that he needs to lose his entire life and net worth and income opportunities based on a boyfriend girlfriend scenario. But back to the New York laws, we have to be very careful where we are residing. I'm here in St. Louis, Missouri, which has very draconian old laws on the books when it comes to death row, life sentences, child support. Missouri, up until the laws have been loosened recently, they were sending men and women to jail for child support like it was nobody's business. And that's a civil matter, not a criminal matter. Missouri is one of the top death row states in putting people to death, like Texas. The gun laws in Texas, everybody's walking around with a gun like they're a cowboy. State of Washington in the same way. So I think it's important for the United States citizens to become more conscious and aware of the laws that are being established by their legislators, by their politicians, by their aldermen, by their mayors, city council people. We need to pay close attention. Your right to vote and voting and paying attention and looking at the laws makes all the difference in the world. Just in case if you get caught up in this chasm of corruption. This is going to be on the news all week with Jonathan Majors. It is very unfortunate. I know if he could take back and go back in the hand of time, he could change it, but you can't get yesterday back. The only thing that we have control of is today and possibly tomorrow. So, New York, I would stay out of New York. I would definitely not have an apartment there if you're a single man. I think in today's time with the Me Too movement, it should probably draw more and more entertainers and athletes and people in positions of power to go have a monogamous marital relationship and not deal with strangers. It is going to create a gap for people to get to know each other. Everybody is on edge. I think this is the toughest time in the world for anyone to be in the public eye because there are tons of people that are out here to get you. Was that her initial intent? I don't know. But the way it has turned out has been terrible for him. Of course, there will be a civil lawsuit that's going to come from this. So she's going to sue him. So he's going to lose $300 to $400 million, $500 million as an actor with Disney and the Marvel Studios. And then she's going to sue him for multi-million dollars. So this is going to bankrupt Mr. Jonathan Majors. And Disney, which is supposed to be a family-oriented company, are left with no choice but to get rid of him. What do you think the protest would be like finding out that they kept him and retained him as an actor with Marvel Studios when he's been convicted of reckless assault and harassment on a woman, let alone a white woman? And I know a lot of African Americans, especially women, are going to sit here and say that he shouldn't have dated the white woman and all that. Well, this is a free country. You can date whoever you want. And there's just as many incidences where black women have taken down black men, whether it's through the child support courts, whether it is Joe Smith and his wife and the saga that's going on with them in today's time. I don't like that young lady, not one bit. Keisha Chavez or something like that. And she's black. But I do think him going to the courts and the accused, the victim was a white woman and he's a black guy in a court that has a heavy preponderance of white male, female, older individuals on the jury, prosecutors, and judge is going to be skewed and slanted against him. And he's paying a little bit of the price of the OJ effect when OJ got off for the murders of killing Nicole Brown Simpson. I think some of this is a deleterious effect from the OJ case from years ago. So if the Cosbys, uh, Jonathan Majors, these gentlemen that are dating outside of their race, they have to be careful if they get into a negative circumstance. And we have to pay attention to these things. I think many times young black folks, and we only pay attention to what's in front of us for the moment, and we're not looking and skewing through the signs and symptomology of what's taking place in front of us. There is a direct conspiracy or something, that disease state that's going on to denigrate and to destroy many of these black entertainers and athletes. It is obvious. I mean, you see it so skewed, you very rarely hear of any white entertainers or athletes that are going through the same thing. Are they better people, or do they make better choices? I don't know. But it is heavily skewed in one direction on social media and the national media, where these black male entertainers and people in power are getting brought down one by one each and every day. And it's disconcerting. It's showing that America is in an unhealthy state. And we have this migrant issue in Chicago and New York. And of course, these people don't know the laws that are taking place and what they're walking into. There's going to be a substantial number of migrants that are going to end up getting arrested and going to jail. And for nitpicky little things, but we need to pay attention to our laws. The law is a philosophical commentary, it's not scientific. So whatever the picture is being painted by the prosecutor or your own personal attorney makes all the difference in the world. Your case is only as good as your attorney. And I don't know if Jonathan Majors picked the right attorneys or not, but this has turned into a complete axiom of personal destruction, character assassination, and he is going to fall into the column of Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Puff Daddy that's in the middle of his scenario, Russell Simmons. Even though it's not a sexual assault case, it's still an assault against a woman who's the victim, and this man is going to have to pay for the rest of his life, and it's unfortunate. He had a lot of talent, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to recover from this. I didn't think that this case, from what I knew about it, warranted all of this. It was a disagreement and a misunderstanding, and the cameras show that she was just as aggressive to him as he was to her. But life takes us into these weird trajectories that we have to bounce back from and respond in a positive way. We need to manifest our truth in the right direction. But Jonathan Majors got convicted on 2 charges: third-degree reckless assault and harassment from this woman, and I'm sure a civil case is on its way. It's unfortunate. Megan Good is with him as his mate, but I also believe that if he is not able to restore his career and his life, that she'll be gone in a year or two. Women are women, whether you're black, white, or green. And if you're not the primary provider and provide a lifestyle that they're used to living like, I think she'll probably be gone in a year or two. There's so much phony bony stuff that goes on in Hollywood. You don't know what's real or what's not. Was she sent and staged to be in a relationship with him and be of color just to show support and to get the black community on his side? Or is this a real relationship? I don't know. But this young lady's going to move on. We won't hear anything about her a year from now. And Jonathan Majors' name will be boiling throughout Hollywood and New York City for a long time. But New York and their laws, they are going after a lot of entertainers and athletes and they are going back 20 and 30 years for all kinds of supposed negative behavior that these young men have committed. Even Cuba Gooding Jr., he's got two new lawsuits, and you haven't heard from him. He got sued several years ago, and you haven't seen anything or heard from him in the last 8 years. So there might be a direct effect of where the powers that be, or whatever conspiracy theory, where they're trying to knock off and character assassinate many of these black actors. It seems like it is skewed so far to the right. And when you talk about bet on black, for the next brother to go down, seems like that's not a bad bet, versus a white entertainer or celebrity. It is very skewed to one direction. So let's manifest our truth in the right direction. Please hit that like and notification button. Stay positive and prayerful and righteous, and let's try to do the right thing.